Rain poured heavily that night, the kind that makes streets shimmer like broken glass. A thin girl, no more than 17, crouched beneath an abandoned shop awning, her torn blanket clutched tightly around her trembling body. Her name was Lila, a homeless teen who had been surviving on the city streets for months, ever since her mother passed away and her stepfather kicked her out. She was used to the rain. She was used to the hunger, the cold, and the way people pretended not to see her. What she wasn't used to was the faint, helpless whimper she heard that night, a sound so small, so broken, it pierced right through the storm. Lila looked up, scanning the alley across the street. There, beside an overturned trash can, she saw a small golden retriever, soaked, shivering, and tangled in a rope. The poor thing looked lost, terrified. Despite the freezing rain and her thin clothes, Lila ran across the street. Her feet splashed through puddles as she knelt beside the dog. Hey, it's okay," she whispered gently, her hands trembling as she worked the wet rope free. "You're okay now, I got you." The dog whimpered but didn't resist. It looked up at her with the saddest brown eyes she'd ever seen, eyes that mirrored her own loneliness. She untied the rope completely, then wrapped her blanket around the animal, ignoring how the cold bit into her skin. "You're safe now," she murmured, stroking its wet fur. "You can stay with me tonight." She led the dog under the awning where she had been sheltering. She used her small bag as a pillow and let the dog curl against her chest. For the first time in months, she didn't feel completely alone. That night, as the rain fell and the city lights blurred into gold and gray, Lila whispered to the dog, "I'll call you Buddy." Buddy wagged his tail softly before drifting into sleep. When Lila woke up the next morning, the rain had stopped. The streets glistened under the morning light, and a faint smell of bread from the nearby bakery filled the air. Buddy was still there, resting his head on her lap. "Morning, boy," she smiled weakly. "We should find you something to eat." She searched through her small stash, a half-eaten sandwich and a bottle of water. She gave most of it to Buddy, smiling as he wagged his tail gratefully. That simple act, giving away what little she had, was normal for her. She had lost everything, yet she still found warmth in giving. Later that day, she noticed a missing poster pinned to a nearby pole. On it was a picture of Buddy, clean and happy, sitting beside a man in a black suit. The poster read, "Lost dog, reward, $10,000. Owner, Alexander Reed." Lila froze. Alexander Reed, she'd heard that name. He was the CEO of Reed Technologies, one of the biggest companies in the city. He was rich, powerful, and completely out of her world. She looked at Buddy, who now nuzzled her hand with trust and affection. "You belong to someone," she whispered. "Someone who's probably missing you." But then, fear struck her. What if returning him meant she'd lose the only friend she had? What if they didn't believe her story? What if they thought she'd stolen him? Still, she couldn't ignore the truth. The next morning, she took a deep breath and decided to go to the company's office building. When she arrived, drenched from the drizzle, the guards stared at her with disgust. "You can't come in here," one said harshly. I found Mr. Reed's dog," she stammered, holding Buddy close. The guard frowned but then looked at the dog's collar. "Wait here." Minutes later, the glass doors slid open, and a tall man stepped out. His dark suit, sharp eyes, and the way everyone around him seemed to freeze said it all. This was Alexander Reed. Buddy barked excitedly and ran toward him. "Buddy!" Alexander exclaimed, kneeling as the dog leapt into his arms. "Oh my God, I thought I lost you." For a moment, the tough CEO's composure broke. He hugged the dog tightly, relief flooding his face. Then he looked up, and saw Lila. She stood there awkwardly, soaked, shivering, her eyes lowered. "You found him?" he asked softly. "Yes, sir," she said. "He was tied up in an alley last night. I just couldn't leave him there." Alexander looked at her more closely. She was painfully thin, her clothes torn. "You're homeless." Lila hesitated. "Yes, sir." He paused, then said quietly, "Come inside." Inside the grand lobby, people stared as the drenched girl followed the CEO. Alexander ordered towels, warm coffee, and food for her. She thanked him shyly, her eyes darting around the shiny floor and marble walls like she didn't belong there. As she fed Buddy pieces of bread, Alexander asked, "You could have sold him. Why bring him back?" "Because he wasn't mine," she said simply. "And he was scared. I just wanted him safe." Her words hit something deep inside him. He was used to people doing things for money, not kindness. He stared at her, realizing she was probably younger than his own niece, yet she had more heart than most adults he knew. When she finished eating, she stood. "Thank you for the food, sir. I'll go now." "Wait," Alexander said. "Where will you go?" She looked down. "Anywhere, I guess. It doesn't matter." Something in that answer broke him. He had built an empire, but he'd lost his sense of compassion long ago, ever since his wife died and his family drifted apart. But this girl, despite having nothing, reminded him what humanity looked like. "Do you have any family?" he asked. She shook her head. "No one left." "Then you'll stay here tonight," he said. "I'll arrange a room for you." Lila blinked in disbelief. "Sir, I can't." "You can," he interrupted firmly. "Consider it a thank you for saving Buddy." That night, for the first time in months, Lila slept in a warm bed. She had clean clothes, a hot shower, and food waiting on a tray. Buddy slept beside her, his tail occasionally thumping against the blanket. She stared at the ceiling, tears silently falling. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything." Outside, Alexander stood by the doorway for a long moment before turning away. Something about her innocence, her quiet strength, it stirred something in him he hadn't felt in years. Over the next few days, Lila stayed at the Reed mansion. She helped the house staff, walked Buddy, and even started reading books from the library. Alexander watched from a distance, amazed by how naturally she fit in despite her circumstances. One morning, he found her sitting on the terrace, sketching Buddy with a pencil. Her drawings were stunning, alive with emotion. "You're talented," he said. Lila jumped, embarrassed. "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to." "Don't apologize," he said gently. "Where did you learn to draw like that?" "My mom used to teach me," she said, her voice soft. "Before she got sick." Alexander nodded slowly. He saw himself in her pain. Different worlds, same scars. Days turned into weeks. Lila became a quiet presence in the mansion, helping, learning, smiling again. Alexander found himself waiting for her laughter echoing down the hall. Buddy adored her, refusing to sleep anywhere but near her door. One evening, Alexander's assistant came into his office. "Sir, the board is asking about the girl. People are talking." "Let them talk," Alexander said simply. "She's staying." He didn't care about rumors. What he cared about was that, for the first time in years, his house didn't feel empty. But one afternoon, everything changed. Lila overheard two maids whispering. "She's probably just after money," one said. "These street kids know how to act innocent. She's lucky the boss hasn't sent her away yet." Lila's heart sank. That night, she packed her small bag. She couldn't bear the thought of being a burden. She kissed Buddy's head softly and whispered, "Be good, okay?" Then she slipped out into the night. The next morning, Alexander came downstairs to find Buddy barking frantically at the door. When he realized Lila was gone, something inside him shattered. He sent people to search the nearby streets, the shelters, anywhere, but there was no trace. Days passed, weeks, and yet, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Then, one rainy evening, almost exactly a month after she first saved Buddy, there was a knock at the door. When he opened it, there she was. Soaked again, shivering, but alive. "Lila," he breathed. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I just didn't want to cause trouble." Before she could say more, Buddy jumped at her, tail wagging wildly. Alexander stepped closer, his eyes full of warmth. "You didn't cause trouble," he said quietly. "You brought life back into this house." Tears filled her eyes. "But I don't belong here." He shook his head. "You belong exactly where kindness lives, and that's here." Then, without hesitation, he said, "I want to help you finish school, Lila. You deserve a future. Let me do that." Her lips trembled. "Why me?" "Because you reminded me," he said, voice thick, "that not all riches come from money." Years later, Lila walked across a university stage, diploma in hand. In the front row, Alexander and Buddy, now older but still faithful, watched proudly. After the ceremony, she ran to them, hugging Buddy first, then Alexander. "I couldn't have done it without you." He smiled. "No, Lila, you did it because of who you are." And as the sun dipped low behind them, the man who once had everything but happiness finally realized that one small act of kindness, a homeless girl saving a dog in the rain, had changed both their lives forever. Because sometimes, the people who have the least to give the most. And sometimes, the simplest kindness can open a door you never expected to knock on your heart.